This is the Coin It podcast, sponsored by CoinCosmo.com. Have fun like a collector. Think like an investor. Whether you're just a hobbyist or looking for an alternative investment with rare coins, paper money, NFTs, or art, your host, Charles Jonath, is covering it all. Now your host, Charles Jonath.
Got Greg here. Greg from Legend Auctions, chief numismatist over there at Legend Auctions, which you guys are great, man. Thank you. I'm of course a customer of you guys. I'm trying to bid in all these Regency sales, and I know you got the Regency 51 coming up, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, at Central States at the end of April.
Wow. There's some awesome coins in there. I mean, I got to see a few of them, and I know like you still got some of the Dale Freen collection that's circling around in there, right?
Yeah. So Dale unfortunately passed away last year, and we were consigned by the estate the remaining coins that he had. So they'll be sold in two parts. The first part will be at Central States, focusing on his early dollars. And part two will be focused more on his early halves. And that'll be in our May New Orleans auction.
Yeah. So I know Dale was, more well known for collecting his bus halves, but there's incredible early dollars in this sale, like really nice stuff.
Yeah. Dale was, we've been talking to a bunch of people who knew him well in preparation for the catalog, doing pedigree research and things like that. And the phrase that comes up the most in talking about Dale was that he was a collector's collector. So that means that he really, when he collected, he went all into it. He very focused on quality. And one of the things as you go through the auction, not every coin is the finest known and some of them are not even in the condition census, but every coin you can tell when you look at it was curated. It had a look that Dale liked. So, and that was Dale, he had a look that he really enjoyed and sought out coins that had that good luster, really pretty toning, a good strike, and was not afraid to pay up for the coins that he wanted.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because like when I go and I study the auction results on stuff, and you look at things in grades, and you kind of realize, well, why did this 64 sell for this price, and then another 64 didn't really make the mark? They're both there. They're both kind of CIC, but just one has, I think, a look or a quality to it that just is not that is better than the other.
Right. Absolutely. One of the things that led to a market crash about 30 years ago, a little more than 30 years ago, was that Wall Street thought that with PCGS and NGC grading coins, that it could commodify the coin market. And basically every MS65 was exactly the same. So you could have an MS65 example, and I could have an MS65 example, and they're worth exactly the same. Except my MS65 is dipped out and unoriginal, and your MS65 is a beautifully toned stone bold original example, and your coin is going to bring multiples of what mine is. And so when Wall Street realized that they couldn't commodify rare coins that way, they pulled their money out of the market, and that led to a weak point in the market basically it was the crash of 89, and the market was pretty bad into the early 90s, because there was so much speculation going on. Oh, Wall Street's going to get involved, and the prices are going to keep going up, and that never happened, because you can't commodify rare coins by grade.
I don't think we've seen anything like it since in our market. I mean, I know people talk about now the price is going up a bit, but I don't think the speculation is nowhere near what it was in the late 80s and early 90s to me.
No, absolutely not. This market the driving factor behind this market is a collector driven market. And that's why it's so strong. And that's why one of the issues that happens in a market like this is that it's not bringing new coins into the market. You know, when you had that speculative run, you had people who had old time holdings bring their coins out and sell them. This time around, and again, it happened about eight or 9 years ago. Also, there was a really strong market post Great Recession. The market picked up pretty quickly and was strong for a few years. We're now surpassing that, and this is a collector-driven market. It's for various reasons, and that's taking the coins that come up in an auction or come up at coin shows, and they disappear. And until new material comes to resupply, prices are going to continue to go up because there's
lack of
very
good
little
coins.
supply.
Yeah. That's, I think you hit it right on the head there. I mean, there's so many, there's a lot of these big guys still that have built amazing collections over the last 15 to 20 years, and they're still holding, and they got time to go,
Right.
So until like really great coins like come on the market in mass, I don't see this stopping,
Right. Exactly. I mean, we had a few big collections that came out just prior to this run up. If you think about Newman and you think about Pogue and Gene Gardner's collection, you had these this is generational shift. And all the people who took advantage of those coins at that time, they've basically disappeared into the marketplace, into collections. And it's crazy how few of those coins recirculate until another collection comes onto the market.
No, it's true. I mean, it's true. And like, even though we're getting bits and pieces of some really nice stuff coming on the market, it's exactly what it is. It's just bits of food that everyone has to sort of compete over. And I think, until like mass big collections come around, it's just not going to be, because there's a lot of coins out there, but there's not a lot of great coins, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you can get generic dollars, you can get generic gold, but real collector coins is very hard to get right now.
Right. So now I've dealt with you guys before, and I know like you got a really good eye on stuff, and I think you at Legend in general, you guys hit the mark really well. I mean, you do a great job at this. I mean, how did you originally get started in coins? And like, I want to know like your origin story and all this stuff, and how you wound up here at Legend.
Okay. Well, I've been a collector since I'm 7 years old. My grandfather owned a hardware store, and basically anything interesting that came into the cash register, he brought home and socked away into a drawer. And I used to spend a lot of time with him, and we would go over coins, and he would show me things. And that caught the spark, and I was interested in it a little bit here and a little bit there. The collecting bug really hit me when I was in high school. I started collecting a little bit more seriously. And I grew up in northern New Jersey, so there were plenty of coin shops either in the area or, right, a 45-minute bus ride into New York City. I could go to any number of coin shops. And so I continued collecting through high school, through college. Those are usually the years where people put it away for a while. I got more into it.
Wow.
I went to the 2004 ANA in Pittsburgh, and I met a coin dealer whose business was located literally a town over from where I went to college. So I stalked his table until he got back from an auction session, and I introduced myself, and I told him at the time I was specializing in bust half varieties. So lo and behold, I get back to school and there's an email waiting for me from him. He had a client who had a collection of bust half die varieties that needed an appraisal. So that was my first project working for him. And we built a relationship, and I worked for him at coin shows throughout my college career. And then when I graduated, my career track was not numismatics. I was going to school to be a social studies teacher.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, so I mean, my degree and my education definitely helps play a role. I have a BA in history with minors in political science and economics. So all of that plays into numismatics, especially as a cataloger.
Right. Researcher. Yeah.
So after I decided that teaching was not going to be for me, long story short, I was at a coin show, met a gentleman by the name of Neerat, who at the time worked for a New York-based coin dealer / auction house called RM Smythe, which at the time was really more focused on paper money and scripophily. But they had a coin department, and I got hired, and I worked there for a little more than a year. And then I ended up working about 75 blocks north of there at Stax. And I worked at Stax for about 8 years. And then I decided it was time for a change, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions is looking for a professional numismatist to do the auction catalogs. And I ended up leaving Stax Bowers and coming to work for Legend Auctions.
Wow. That's good. So I bet Stax is a big learning experience, right? You get to see like
everything. Everything.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That was an education. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, did you ever wind up taking the grading course at ANA, or?
I took one summer seminar grading course. It was the intro to grading. And that was, I think 20 years ago at this point, almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I am still in touch with one of my instructors.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So we, the industry, as one generation sort of ages out, the new generation comes in and stays in contact with the older generation to keep the traditions alive.
That's one great thing about our industry. I think, there's a lot of support there from one side from one generation to the next. And then, that's what I'm trying to foster going forward too, just building the community. I'm really excited about young people coming in because I'm starting to see a lot of younger people get interested in coins and they want to know more. And that's part of what this whole thing is about,
Yeah. One of the things that I have, I feel like at my age, I'm going to be 39 this year. I feel like I'm at the age where I'm straddling the divide, where you've got the old school generation of numismatists above me, and then you've got the new generation who really have embraced social media, Instagram, podcasting, and things that are completely and totally foreign to the older generation. But they've really greatly expanded our reach. And, I think it's wonderful. There are so many new collectors, so many new dealers who are servicing the new collectors in a way that isn't scaring new collectors off.
Right.
One of the things that I remember as a younger numismatist was that the older generation, if you were not educated, a lot of the time they didn't want to put that time into you.
Mm.
And I feel like, and that didn't go for everybody, but there were definitely dealers who, unless you proved yourself that you were
serious about coins,
serious about coins,
right,
they really didn't want to, they didn't have, especially at coin shows, those are where they make their money. They may not necessarily have had time.
right.
But this new generation, this new crop where everything is done online, especially the last 2 years with COVID and everything being shut down and forced online,
Right.
I feel like this community really has, become more unified and more understanding of how limited the old way of doing things was.
Right. Yeah, in a lot of ways, you're right. And it's interesting how something had to come from outside to sort of force that. And I'm still curious to see how things are going to go moving forward. But it's online is a big thing. It's a big thing that I think our industry has to catch up on. Like social media is one outlet for sure that's going to be more prevalent going forward. Like with these Facebook groups and stuff like that, and even on Instagram now. I mean, I've sold coins, so I've sold coins like in $8,000, $10,000 range just off Instagram. How crazy is that? Like I would have never imagined that before.
Right, exactly, and
So.
I feel Instagram is excellent for marketing really beautiful things because Instagram is more visual.
Right.
I wouldn't think that I don't think a hold and plugged rare die variety, something really esoteric, would sell very well on Instagram.
Right.
So there is a marketplace, there is a need for maintaining the old school way of doing things, knowing who the specialist collectors who are in demand for those really rare things, while at the same time, we all definitely need an outlet for really cool things that take a beautiful picture.
Right.
And I feel like Instagram, Facebook is really allowing us to do that. And you're absolutely right. The Facebook groups really help. It's really introduced me to a whole crop of coin dealers and coin collectors that I never knew existed.
Right.
And
well, so the different, like, it's going back to what you said, the Instagram is the pretty coins, let's say, like, which it is right. It should be right in line with legend. I mean, that's what you guys kind of do, is like that real eye appeal, toning, that kind of thing, which I appreciate completely. And then, but the Facebook groups are more like a collection of, they're an extension, I think, of collector groups and societies. So like, that's like the new online presence or whatever for these collector groups. And that's where you find the people that collect the varieties. So it's like, it's harder to sell varieties, I think, in the general market. If like you got $1, but it's a specific variety, but someone in a collector society who's looking for a specific coin, or they like varieties with cuds or whatever it may be, you're going to find that collector there.
Right, exactly. And that's the beauty of social media, is that it's created this environment where we can instantaneously communicate with people with photos. It kind of reminds me of the old AOL chat rooms where,
right.
And again, I'm dating myself.
Don't worry, me too. I'm right there with you.
But though there used to be coin chat rooms on AOL.
I remember.
And watching, reading people's messages to each other about all different things. This has just made it a lot broader and a lot more visual, because I can easily see what people are describing with exceptional photos and video. You know, you could take a video of your coin and rotate it, and it looks just like I'm holding it in my hand.
Yeah.
And you might be, you might be in Las Vegas and I'm in New Jersey, and I get a real sense of what your coin looks like.
Right. Right. Just from that short little video, because you could see it in hand. It's not like this true view or a professionally photographed coin, which are great, but it's a little bit different. But I don't know, like for me, when I'm bidding at stuff at auction, I always think like if I'm going to spend quite a bit of money, I want to go, I'm going to fly there, I'm going to go and I'm going to see these coins in hand, because I think that's a lot of times where you can find the opportunities. Because if something is not photographed exactly right, but then you go there and you see the coin in hand and it's phenomenal, that's when you're going to have the advantage, because a lot of times you're going to be the strong bidder.
Absolutely. And at the same time, by doing that, you might also save yourself from making a mistake.
Correct.
There are coins that photograph beautifully and a minor flaw may not show up. And especially on auctions where there are no descriptions, you have to look at it, because those flaws are very easily hidden in photographs. And if there's not a professional who's sitting there looking at the coin with a glass to describe the coin to you, whether in a written description or if you call up the auction house and say, hey, I'm interested in lot 502, can you tell me about it? An image may not show that there's a hairline scratch in the field because it's covered by toning, and the photograph focused on the toning rather than on the scratch.
Right.
And again, that's when I'm cataloging a coin that comes into any one of our auctions. I'm looking at the coin, both sides, both naked eye and with a glass. And I try very hard to disclose if there are some minor little things that are hidden, because our motto at Legend Auctions is that a happy buyer will make a happy seller, which means if you love the coin, somebody else later on down the line is going to love the coin just as much as you are. And that will make for a profitable transaction later on. And that's what we want. We want you to buy coins from us, and then later on, when it's time for your collection to be sold, we want to be able to handle that collection yet again and pass them on to the next generation.
100%. No, yeah, that's the beauty part of having good clients. You know what I mean? You get to handle the coin both times, which is great.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I mean, so like, as far as what you guys are seeing right now, I mean, I know what I noticed. It seems like these big, like top registry stuff is very strong right now. Like where people want to get that high grade, that 68 or whatever, depending on the series. And those coins just get carried away, I think, a bit. But like, where is the gaps? Like, is there, you see more people coming into collecting little odds and ends like colonials and stuff like that? Or is it just very strong, like, registry set stuff, like top grade seated or top grade, walking liberties or whatever that may be?
Sure. So right now, anything big is hot. So $10 gold, $20 gold, silver dollars. That's all, the slugs, whether they're the pan pack slugs or the territorial slugs of the 1850s, those are all very hot right now. The registry game has made things very interesting because, like you said, the top grade, the MS-68 grade is selling for many, many multiples of what the next half grade underneath would sell for. And so while, yes, the top pop gets all the attention, there are some gorgeous coins that are just below the top pop that can be had for fractions. And to the untrained eye, and for most people, I would say that unless you had to be the number one registry collector, an MS-67 Plus with gorgeous color is going to please you just as much as that MS-68 with gorgeous color.
Right.
And on some of these dates, the multiples are huge. The spreads between a 7 Plus and an 8 are huge.
I know, and that's on a great 67 Plus with a CHD. That's like 5 resubmissions away from a 68.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many submissions, but the sentiment is correct.
Just speculating.
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's the thing, is that so many of, and part of the reason why I think there is a growing spread is because when you look at the pops in that next grade under, it's going to be inflated by people trying to get that next grade. Yeah. So let's say you have a coin, and I don't have anything right in front of me to give specifics about, but let's say you have a coin where the population is 5 in MS-68. There might be 150 in MS-67 Plus on the pop and 800 in MS-67. Now, are there really 850 MS-67 and 67 pluses out there? Probably not. There's probably a lot of duplication of somebody trying to go from a 7 to a 7 plus,
right,
and then from somebody trying to get those 7 pluses into an 8.
Interesting. Yeah. Because the magic's like right there in that 67 plus, I think.
Right. There are books that came out about 10, 15 years ago. Dave Bowers wrote a whole series of books on different series. And one of the things that he tried to include with every date was the optimal collector grade, which is the grade where it's the highest grade before the prices go up exponentially to the next grade level.
Interesting.
And those are the coins that I feel in a lot of series right now are kind of undervalued because everybody's chasing those top grades.
Right.
And there's also series right now that have been neglected and long been neglected. Proof Barber coinage, for example.
Yes.
You could, Barber dimes. There are 24 coins in the series. And in Proof 65, you can build a set for about $25,000-$30,000.
Isn't that amazing?
And it's amazing. And
in
most
2022.
Coins, yeah, in 2022, these coins are all over 100 years old. They, for the most part, have mintages under 1,000. I think there's only 1 or 2 dates where the mintage is over, and many of the mintages are under 800. So you've got coins that began life as quote unquote rarities because they're low mintage.
Right. They were made for collectors back then in the 1800s.
Right. And if you think about it, would you rather, for the money, would you rather 2 Proof 1995 W Silver Eagles in Proof 70, or would you rather a complete set of Barber dimes in gem?
No, Barber dimes for sure.
I mean,
it's a no-brainer.
And to me, that's a no-brainer. I mean, there were more 95 Ws minted just that one year than the entire mintage of the Barber dime series combined in Proof. So that really, when you think about fundamentally how cheap some of numismatics is, that's a great example. Another area that I think is finally starting to show some signs of life is the classic commems. For years and years and years, it was one of the biggest drags on the market because either there were ugly coins that were overgraded that sold for cheap in auction, and then that got reported and drove prices downward, or there were just not enough collectors building sets.
Right.
Except again, at the very top of the population of the registry set program.
Right.
Now I feel like there are collectors who are coming out and not just focusing on the top pops, not just focusing on gorgeously toned examples, although they all remain, those two categories remain extremely popular. But I feel like there's life coming to coins that are nice. They don't have to be gorgeous, but for nice coins. And again, a lot of those have very small mintages. So those are areas that are, again, as people get priced out of other areas, they look for other things to collect because collectors need something to collect.
Right. No.
From my experience, I went from collecting, like I said earlier, I was collecting bust half die varieties, and I got priced out of the grade point that I was playing with, and I was getting bored of them. So I found something else I sold those. I found something else to collect.
Right.
Then when I was done collecting that, I sold that collection, and I started, now I just put back things that kind of interest me, medals and tokens and things that just, they're interesting. They're historic, but they may or may not be, they're not federal coinage. So
got it. That's what you're doing now?
That's what I do now. I collect medals and tokens. There's a couple of different themes that if they pop up, and I like the item, I'll buy it. But there's no cohesive theme to any of it. There's just, if something catches my eye that I like it, I'll buy it.
So it's, and you made a good point of like, when you get tired of a collection or you want to move on from it or whatever, as long as you're doing quality within the grade and you're being smart about it, I think you're making out very well when you go to sell.
Absolutely. If you buy nice quality coins, there's always going to be a market for those. And there's always going to be collectors who want high quality coins. So let's say you were working on a set of, you're trying to build a complete set of, pick any series. I don't want to denigrate any series. So just, in your imagination, say I'm building set X, and you're down to the last 5 or 6 coins, or you've got the complete set, and now you're just trying to upgrade a few and you're bored, or you can't afford to go that next step. There's nothing wrong with saying, I did what I did. This is as far as I can go. And I want to start something else. And you don't need to, there's nobody forcing you to sell before you figured out what you want to collect next. You hang on to it and say, okay, when something else, strikes my fancy, then I'll move this collection to start something new. There's one of the great things about this hobby, and again, it is, even for us in the trade, it is a hobby.
Right.
One of the great things about it is there are no real right or wrong ways to do it.
Yeah.
Collecting is very personal.
It's personal. Yeah. I was just going to say.
So if you are that kind of person who has to have a complete set of something, you need every hole filled, that's great. There's a way to collect that way. If you like to collect coins that have birds on them or different kinds of animals or depict actual people, there are all different ways to collect, and every single one of them will give you enjoyment. And that's, when you're looking at a hobby, that's the most important thing, is getting the enjoyment out of it.
Right. When you want to tackle like a specific series in that, I mean, I think you gotta get educated though, right? I mean, you gotta really kind of like look at this stuff seriously and then do a bit of research. I think you gotta be into it,
Absolutely. One of the things, again, we'll go back to the collection that we're selling. in April and in May, going back to Dale Friend, he focused on series. He would build a collection of a certain series. And before he started buying coins, he would read as much as he could about that series, whether that series was Liberty Nickels, which he did about 20 years ago, or whether it's Barber Quarters or Early Dollars or Bust Half Dollars. He became an expert. And where he had questions, where something didn't make sense or he wanted more information, if it wasn't in a book or in an auction description, he made a network of collector friends and dealers who could advise him on the minutia, the details that may or may not be in the book, but are there based on years and years of experience,
which is huge.
Which is huge. You can't always there. You can learn a lot by reading, and there's many amazing coin books out there, and many amazing descriptions and articles that you could read. And the internet, going back to technology in our generation, really has made accessing all of that very easy.
Right.
But there is no substitute sometimes for sitting down with a specialist and getting firsthand knowledge from their years and years of experience.
Correct. Yeah. Right. You know what? I think it goes back to seeing a lot of coins. Like, see, like you have a really good advantage because the amount of great coins you get to see at Legend. I mean, that just the training of the eye, the repetition of looking at these coins over and over and over again. It does something to where you could see the quality between one and another more easily. The brain starts to distinguish between coins within a grade, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And this is one of the reasons why the grading services have never been able to create artificial intelligence grading, at least not yet, because there's nothing that can compare to the human brain when it comes to building a database of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you do have to train your eye, not just for grade levels. I mean, we're very fortunate in this day and age where so many of the coins that we collect, that we buy and we sell, are certified. And PCGS and NGC have done a really good job of filtering out a lot of the counterfeits, the vast majority of the counterfeits that are out there in the marketplace that trade. But that said, I've seen images of counterfeit slabs with counterfeit coins.
Yes.
So
they make them.
No,
they do.
Yeah. And so having the experience to know the diagnostics on genuine coins is a skill set that we all still need, because as great as PCGS and NGC have been taking a lot of the guesswork out of this for collectors, there's still a lot of bad things that can be found on the internet that, and again, I've seen it. I've seen key date Morgan dollars that are counterfeit PCGS holders, that if you were not a professional who handles thousands of slabbed coins every year, so not just what the coin is supposed to look like, but what the holder is supposed to look like.
Right.
You can get caught buying something online, which is why you really, even with certification, really you need to be working with a trusted, legitimate, reputable coin dealer.
Exactly. Yeah. I agree, especially if you're going to put any real effort into this and money. I mean, it's always best to work with a specialist. That can be the difference between, you being successful at this or, you know, failing miserably. I mean, but you know, it's weird though. Like the one thing about our industry, and I keep saying this, is that there's no like thing to qualify really you as an expert. I mean, anyone could sort of say that they're an expert in coins and go open up a coin shop and start buying coins, but they have no experience in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you kind of have to read in between the lines a bit to figure out who is sort of really knowledgeable about this stuff and who can help you build collections and who isn't.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things that I've found working, you know, for auction companies is that the auction companies have the resources to help you out, because we're there to help the consignor sell the coin. But again, like I said, we are also there for when you are ready to sell. So the auction houses, especially with speaking for Legend, we want you to be happy. We will advise you honestly and truthfully. If there's a coin, if we know how you collect or the coins that you like, we can tell you, hey, this coin is going to be great for your collection. Or conversely, if the coin is not necessarily one that's going to fit your personal set, we won't tell you to go and buy it.
Right.
You know, we want you to be happy with your purchases.
Yeah. Well, it seems like, you know, because then you guys have a whole other side to the business, like Legend Numismatics, like does private sale, right? Correct.
So Legend Numismatics is, both companies were founded by Laura Sperber. Laura is one of the premier coin dealers in the United States. She buys and sells great rarities, beautiful coins, and does representation for collectors and services want lists. Over the years, the reason she started the auction company was what happens to those coins, to those collections that you build with people when they want to go auction them off. So she started an auction company to help those customers with selling their coins. And again, the customer base is dedicated to high quality and beautiful eye appeal coins. And that's what we do. And that's what everybody strives to do, obviously, but we've
no, you guys definitely do it well.
We've done it. You know, we've kind of found the sweet spot.
I agree. Yeah. It always says like, you're like the little auction house that's great, but not that little, you know what I mean?
Well, we're a boutique, you know, we don't need to, you know, we don't feel like you need to sit through, you know, one of the things that we've found, again, over the many years that Laura had been doing this as a buyer in auction, is you don't want to, who wants to sit through 1,000 lot auction session to buy the last coin in the session? You know, there were areas that
there's 600 lots.
You know, why sit, you know, if you, and that was, you know, back in the days before the internet, where you had to stay in the room the entire time because you didn't know at what time that lot was going to come up. Now, at least with the internet and having it on our phones, is you could watch the auction while you're out to dinner.
Yeah. Well, it's not a like imperfect process. I mean, there's other auction houses where they text me when my lot's supposedly my lot's going to come up for, you know, auction in the live auction, but then a lot of times it's way beforehand I get the message, you know what I mean? Where I have to sit through another 100 lots, you know?
Right. Or they'll text you, you know, 10 lots away, because there's I've had that also, where they text you that your lot is, you know, coming up and it's 10 or 15 lots, and I'm driving in my car going somewhere. So you know, having a smaller auction session allows you that if you have to sit through the session, You're not going to be there for 10 hours. I've had experiences where I've been in the auction room for 10 hours for for auction sessions, because there's, again, back before the internet and everybody was in the room going increment by increment.
You just have to sit there.
You just have to sit there. Yeah. Today, Legend Auctions has made it so that you can participate anywhere. Our mobile app and our website are very user friendly and they're very easy to navigate, and they're very intuitive. So it's not going to take you 5 hours to try and figure out how to bid. Right. You can bid live during the session and be successful, hopefully, on your bidding from anywhere in the world.
Definitely. So, Greg, I wanted to ask you, like, in your professional opinion, like, what would be a specific coin that would be better off sold at auction as opposed to a private sale? Like, what do you think is a better type coin or something like that does better in a private sale? And then what should be auctioned off? I mean, is there a difference there, or how do you quantify that in your mind?
So there are certain, again, as an auction company, I want to say, put it all in auction.
Right.
Things that are generic don't need to go into auction unless there's something special about them. An MS-67 1881S Morgan dollar, for example, is got a very well-defined market value.
Right.
You put it in auction, when you take out the buyer's premium and whatever commissions the auction company charges you, you may or may not end up netting the same or less than if you were to sell it directly to a dealer, because that market is so well defined. It's the same thing with generic gold. Unless there's something special about the coin, like you have a 1924 Saint in MS-64 that you just had graded, that coin is not worth putting in auction. But if you have a 1924 Saint in a first generation Rattler holder, that coin you might want to put in auction, because there are people who are going to look at the coin and say that coin is undergraded and it's worth 2 or 3 people putting bids in to drive the price up from a generic price to a more numismatic collectible price.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like I those old green holder phenomenon is, I get, like, the grading standards were pretty strict back then. And like you a lot of times that could happen. You get a lot of people bought these coins and they cracked them out and upgraded them. But now, like, there's a dwindling of those holders. So like I think a whole line of collectors is popping up that just wants them in the original holder, and they don't intend on cracking them. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
How that works. Yeah. There's these little phenomenons that happen. I mean, look at CAC.
You look at absolutely. You look at CAC.
What do you think about? I know you guys do a lot. You're very fortunate because I know you guys can go there and drop off your coins to CAC.
Yeah,
but I mean, what do you think of all that? I mean, do you think the premiums now are justified in a lot of this stuff, or like, where do you see that going?
I think that the market is the market. When you look at auction prices, that is, from an economic standpoint, the purest example of a marketplace. You have a seller and you have a buyer, and the buyers go out there and they bid to what they're willing to pay. And the person who's willing to pay the most gets the item. So are there coins that you scratch your head why they brought so much money based, in comparison to previous examples? Sure. But there's also an opportunity cost involved on some of these rare coins. When is the next example going to appear at auction?
Yeah.
I might not have the disposable funds to buy that coin again if it comes up in 2 years, because maybe in 2 years, the price is going to be double what it is today.
Right.
So there's an opportunity cost that everybody in collecting makes when they're bidding an auction, and that drives the price up. You're also the one of the phenomenon that we see right now in the marketplace is that there are people who have made a lot of money in cryptocurrency and other investments that have skyrocketed in the last 2-3 years. And there's a lot of available cash for people. So if you are buying, for some of these collectors, what's the difference if I pay, a 25% premium over the last example, because the money basically came to me for free. They're playing, you're taking profits from one thing, and I'm,
so are you guys seeing some of these crypto guys entering the market, or?
We are. There are some very big players in the market right now who have made their money, from what we understand, from the cryptocurrency market, from the stock market, having been crazy the last few years, and they take there's things to do with the money that's not another. Buying another ETF or another cryptocurrency. It's buying something cool, something interesting, and it's trickled into not just coins. It's all over every hobby, every collectible.
You know what? It's very smart to do, though, because think about it. They're going into something that's more stable and less volatile. So it's really taking gains that you made sort of on speculation and then putting it into something that's a tangible asset in a way. I mean, anytime you're buying a coin has a solid collector base for over 100+ years.
Right. Exactly.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Yep, absolutely. When we've seen it, I've seen things like this happen in different time periods. Right now, you've got the other specter of inflation. And every time people talk about inflation, there's usually, traditionally gold has been a safe haven, the store of value for people, when there's inflation. So you go from buying a Krugerrand or an American Eagle, and then some people then say, hey, what else can I get for the same $2,000?
Right.
And I can buy for the same $2,000, I can buy an MS-61 Saint that's over 100 years old. That sounds a little bit better to me than something that just came off the press yesterday. Right.
Considering they're not making more of them, right?
Right, exactly. So, and then from there, you say, okay, well, what other dates can I get in that same price range? And you can build a decent sized collection of $20 libs and $20 Saints in that way, where you look at dates that don't have a huge premium over their gold value.
Now
and there's plenty of them.
Right. And so now you've gamified and created a hobby out of your savings.
Exactly.
Which is cool.
Exactly.
I think it's very cool.
It's very cool.
It makes it more engaging too. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford gold, you can do the same thing with silver. You can stack silver. There's so many people who are out there with the hashtag silver stacking.
Right.
Where, it's
huge.
Buying, and it's, created, again, a whole new dynamic for things that otherwise had very little premium over the silver value. In just the last 10 years, I've noticed premiums for certain things that, when you used to go into a coin shop and try to sell, you would get below silver. And when you went to sell, when you when the dealer bought those items, they would have to just sell them to a refiner,
right?
Because nobody wanted that stuff.
No.
Now I'm, on some of these Facebook groups, people are getting $5 over an ounce of silver,
right,
for different kinds of bars, and people are collecting those. That was not a thing.
Yeah, vintage bars are big.
Yeah,
that
was
really
not a
growing.
thing.
It's true. I know. Yeah. So, you know what? I'm seeing more people starting to jump into, it seems, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I may be wrong about it, but into U.S. pattern coinage.
Yeah.
Which is good, because I was a little bit nervous there. I'm like, oh, it seems to be a small group of these guys that are collecting patterns. They're mostly on the East Coast. You don't really see them out here on the West Coast. And, but now I'm starting to see people even here get into like, oh, what are these things called patterns? And they look cool. And what is that all about? And let's bid on it. Let's buy these.
Sure. So patterns are really very cool. They're really, among U.S. coins, the rarest. They were struck in very small amounts. What had happened was there were two very big collectors who were building collections. There was a gentleman in the South who for decades was collecting them. And then Bob Simpson, obviously, was a big collector. He, through legend, was able to buy that other gentleman's major collection. Bob has been selling off portions of his collection for the last couple of years, and has brought material into the market that has not been seen in many, many years. Right. There are patterns in his collection that have not been in the marketplace for decades because they were in the one collection.
Like 20 years.
20 years, some of them longer.
Yeah.
So what's happened is, finally, without the specter of having these two big collectors out there competing against you, they are now able to buy these coins that they were otherwise not given access to.
Right.
And it's become, people are realizing how rare these coins are. I mean,
yeah, it's crazy. That's the thing.
We have another, collection in April and in May in our auctions. It's called the Glorious Pattern Collection, and it's somebody who over the last 20 years.
Okay, interesting. So is that going to be the one that's going to be at the Orleans show?
Part 1 will be in Central States. Part 2 will be in New Orleans.
Okay, so some of those patterns are going to be in the Regency 51 then?
Yes, they are up online right now. And you'll be able to see them. And basically, in cataloging some of these coins, there are coins where the number minted was under a dozen, and you can have that coin for a couple $1,000s.
It's crazy, right? Yeah.
It's crazy. They're very cheap. And the designs, in many cases, are more beautiful than the adopted designs that we were using.
Right.
But for one reason or another, internal mint politics or whatever, those designs never got adopted.
Right.
But and that's another area of numismatics where it is extremely
wide
extensive.
Open, I think.
It's wide open, and it's extensive enough that it can be, and is in many cases, broken down into subcategories, so that you don't, if you are the set builder type, you don't need to collect all 2,100 Judd numbers that are listed in the reference books, because that's just a task that's not feasible. There's unique patterns that are impounded in the Smithsonian and in other institutional collections that you'll never be able to own.
No,
so So trying for a complete Judd set, you can't do.
Right.
But you can collect one collection of patterns that we sold. We sold Bob Simpson standard silvers a few years ago. And that's the quote unquote most common type. Mm-hmm. But within the 200 whatever Judd numbers that there are for the series, there's 5 or 6 different variations that make collecting that series so much more interesting. Right. Whether it's you're only going to collect the ones actually struck in silver, or you can collect only the ones struck in 1869, or you could, there's so many different ways to do it.
Some you could be the only one. You could literally probably have the only one in private hands.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It is an area that it invites a lot of research. Should you be interested? Because some of these coins are so rare that you can trace them back over the last 120 years in auction catalogs if you so desire.
Yeah, you do.
And in where we can, we do. And it used to take hours of standing in library stacks and needing to have access to auction catalogs that go back to the 1800s. Now, thanks to the internet with the Newman portal, I have all of those catalogs for the most part within a click of my mouse.
Yeah. I've been trying to promote it too. It's a great resource for people, the Newman numismatic portal.
Yeah.
You could really do great research there. You have a lot of stuff available for you there.
Yeah.
No, it's very, so what should I be bidding on in the Regency 51?
Well, there's plenty of early dollars from Dale Friend's collection. Yeah, and what I liked about that is that there are coins from the Garrett collection. There's an Eliasberg coin. In doing the research, I found one coin that was from the Amon Carter collection, which was a big collection sold in 1984, that pedigree had gotten lost over time. And, I was able to reconnect that pedigree to that coin. There's the patterns, there's excellent patterns. A couple of my favorite designs are in the sale, including James Longacre did a pattern nickel in 1867 with Liberty wearing an Indian headdress. That's very cool. Not in relative terms with patterns, it's not an extremely rare pattern. There's about 50 or 60 of them known approximately in all grades, but it's just a beautiful design. Much, much nicer, in my opinion, than the Shield nickel. So that's in there. There's a lot of gold. There's a lot of 20th century gold, which right now, like I said, is very high.
Big. Yeah.
It's big. There's, for the toned dollar collectors, there's numerous consignments of toned Morgan dollars, many of which are on par with some of the greats that we've sold over the years, from the Northern Lights collection, from the Simpson Sunnywood collection, from the Northern Lights collection. So there's a lot of, and that's a whole different market also. That's a hobby unto itself. People collecting monster toned Morgan dollars. And they collect them more as pieces of artwork than a numismatic item, it seems, because they are beautiful. They are pieces of Mother Nature's art, basically.
Exactly.
Type coins, there's a nice selection of type coins. There's a little bit of everything for pretty much everybody. So I think, everybody should take a look at it.
Yeah, I got my eye on some of those early dollars. They're really nice.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to be active as I can. Hopefully it's tough these days. It's competitive.
absolutely.
I've had a
And
bit of
again,
luck at the last few sales of yours. I've won some items, which is good, but like
that,
a lot, I fell short, you know, it's just
yep,
competitive.
it's, you know, you have to, this market right now is different also in that, you know, in earlier markets, you know, if you missed out on a coin, there was a shot that at some point in the next, you know, 18 months, that coin might reappear as dealers buy them on spec. There's very little of that going on right now.
Yeah.
The market is very collector driven. So those coins will only reappear when the collector decides it's time to sell it.
I do see dealer participation, but I'm coming to find out that the dealers are representing clients, and then they're going to clients and they're going to sit in the vault. So
right, yeah, and that's what's happening a lot. Most of our coins, I would say around 90% of the coins that are sold in our auctions either sell to collectors directly or to dealers representing collectors. Right. Very little of the coins in our auctions go to dealers who are buying for stock. One of the other things that we're instituting with this Regency 51 is we are introducing a new internet-only session. In years past, if you gave us a consignment and there were coins that either didn't make the grade or didn't have the value, you know, we would say, hey, you know, these really aren't for us, and we would return them. And we've seen those coins end up elsewhere. So we've decided in other sales. So what we're doing is we started an online session. It's basically coins that we really like, and that's why they're in our auction. But they may not have made the value cut for the Regency auction. So they're in now an internet session. This first one has about 120 coins roughly.
I think I've seen that. It was like gold predominantly, right?
No, it's actually predominantly not gold. There's some smaller gold coins, but there's quite a bit of you know, tone dollars that just aren't, you know, they're not MS65, 66 grade with the monster color. They're MS63s with monster color.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, there's some smaller gold coins, you know, that are highly collectible, PCGS and CAC, they're just, the value isn't there for a Regency placement. They're under $1,000. Right. But again, highly collectible coins. They're in that session, and commemoratives and other series that otherwise might not make it into a Regency auction. We got a small group of, again, very Instagram friendly coins, really beautifully toned proof silver eagles, which is something that I would have never taken on consignment before. But because we have this internet session, you know, there's a collector base for that, and it's pretty big.
So you guys plan on doing more stuff like that, like more frequent auctions?
They'll be in conjunction with the Regency auctions, which in 2022 we have 7 of. And it's something that we're trying out because we see that there is a need for it.
Yeah, there's demand, right?
There is a demand for it, and we felt that this was in keeping with our boutique brand. Every coin will be photographed in the catalog with a description, just like with the rest of the Regency auction. It won't just be a listing of lot number, date, and grade, and then maybe online there'll be a photo. We'll have, you know, it'll be the whole description. There'll be a description with a photo in the catalog.
Very cool.
Yeah.
it allows a whole new audience to participate in some of the stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, not everybody is buying $5,000 and $6,000, $10,000 coins. There are people who are limited. Yeah. There are a lot of collectors out there who want to participate, but can't, are not at that point yet.
Right.
But who's to say that in a couple of years they won't be? So
some will.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So
no, I think that's a good idea. And then, you build the experience, so when they do graduate, one day they'll be participating in some of those bigger sales. I mean, that's
exactly
how it works. That's very cool. So what else for the future for you and for Legend?
Well, for the rest of 2022, like I said, we've got a very busy auction schedule. So from now until the end of the year, it's, one sale. Where one sale ends, the next one has to begin. We're right now 2 weeks away from our deadline for May. And then right after that, we've got an auction in July, September, November, and December. So we've got a very busy schedule, and always looking for great coins. So if you're listening, contact us. We're always looking for consignments.
Awesome, man. Well, great. This was really cool. Like it's an honor and a pleasure to talk with you, and I'm glad I got to have you on and have this discussion.
Yes. Thank you very much, Charles.
Made a lot of good points there, and I hope to see you soon at some of the shows and stuff like that. And then probably when you guys are in Vegas all the time, so
we are. Legend is at Vegas all the time. We are the official auctioneer for the PCGS members shows.
Great little show, by the way. Great.
It is. If you haven't been, it's highly recommended. The food alone. The spread that PCGS puts out is worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
But you have access to dealers who usually at the bigger shows are there for wholesale transactions and are not necessarily available to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah. Right.
It's a very intimate coin show. It's a boutique coin show, which is why we felt and we feel that it's a great fit for our brand, because it's a smaller, more high-powered coin show, and we are a smaller auction company, but our product that we offer is very high-powered numismatic items.
Agreed. All right, Greg, it's been great. And I hope to see you guys soon, and I'm sure we'll do other things. And I know I'm bidding all the time at your guys' auction, so I'm sure I'll see you around soon.
I'm sure we'll see you soon, Charles. Thank you very much.
All right, take care.